Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. I am your host, Charlene, and let me extend a very, very happy Ostara to everyone. Today you are joining me for episode number 23, which is all about the Fae and Fairies. But first, 3 things I did this past weekend to help with my witchcraft practice. So I was traveling last week and had the unique opportunity to do some elemental work with something I have never done spell work with before. Snow. I briefly mentioned snow in my elemental episode about water. Snow water is good for balance, peace, transformation, and really can be used for the blessing of ending something. And if you have been following my journey with some family trauma and the amazing direction I have been gifted with my Crow Tarot deck, then you'll understand how appropriate snow water is for me at this very moment and the very symbolic ending it represents to a journey that is finishing up so we can enter a new phase. Now, I'm not saying I don't have shadow work to do. I know I do, but that is another separate area. So being in the snowy mountains on a trip that really does bring a bunch of light and love to me and my family, well, to say it was magical is a huge understatement. The element of water, of course, has its own energy, right? It's got emotions and dreams, healing, purification, intuition, and creation, as well as being destructive. Snow certainly is a part of water, but snow will bring a very different type of energy. Snow is quiet. It's peaceful. Snow is beautiful and gentle. Snow represents family, peace, and harmony. So it promotes balance, transformation, rest, and regeneration. Now, of course, just as water can be destructive, so can snow. So I wanted to grab some snow before leaving our trip, and it could not have worked out any better, as my older son is the one who packed a bunch of snow in a mason jar for me as we were leaving, which, as you can imagine, brought the family energy to help complete this part of our journey, which I really feel was better than me packing it. So I brought the snow home. It was fully melted after a long drive, but the energy was there. And over the weekend, I took my time and combined the snow energy with the waning moon energy to say goodbye to this part of our family journey so I can fully participate in and enjoy the next part. So second, I did a card pull. At this time, I went back to my animal oracle deck. And you know what? I should have brought this deck up to the mountains with me. When the boys were little, I had an animal oracle deck, different from the one I have now, and I used to pull cards for them. It would have been fun to do that again, but alas, another time. For me this week, the card I pulled was the Chameleon Spirit, yet again. I promise I shuffled the deck. I lit my candles, and I got myself centered before asking for direction for the week. There are 68 cards. 68. And here we are again, being reminded to act as if. As frustrating as it is to get this card over and over again, this one does feel appropriate right now. The chameleon reminds me that changes are happening that will greatly benefit me. And while the outer conditions are changing, I am required to come into harmony with them so I can co-create my greatest dream. So even if I feel like I'm in uncharted waters, I need to act as if and adapt until the new ways feel familiar and natural. So with the powerful transformation, me and my boys have been going through, this actually is a good card to have. Frustrating to get it again, but it is easy to fall back on doubt and fear. I need to keep moving forward until we are back to normal and things feel natural again. So third, I actually did a bunch of yard work in between the stormy weather this weekend. After doing my research about the Fae and Fairies, it prompted me to clean up a bunch so I didn't piss anyone off out there. I'm faithful to feeding the crows and the birds and the bunnies and the squirrels, which I know makes them happy. But with the amount of rain we've had this winter, my yard is overgrown and unkept, which I now know makes them mad. So I charged up my weed eater, I pulled out my rake, and I started cleaning up. And it felt really good. I also started making notes on what I wanted to do for Ostara this week. I do have eggshells that I want to plant some garlic in, as well as shallots. And I know that I want to do something special over the 3 days of our spring equinox that just happens to occur during a wonderful new moon. So it was nice to sit back and, kind of organize what I'll be doing this week, including working with the wonderful dark moon on Tuesday, the new moon on Wednesday, and Ostara. So we have a bunch of amazing energy that I fully plan on capturing this week. I did also make a blueberry and cranberry muffin little batch for the office. Now, when I bake, I always like to add my kitchen magic to the items so my employees have lots of love and encouragement hidden in every bite. Okay, moon status this week. Our beautiful moon is a new moon today. And we all know what that means. It's a fresh start. And oh my goodness, the fact that we have a new moon, Ostara, and the spring equinox all happening at once makes this week very, very powerful. So last night was our dark moon, Hecate's night, but now we are in a new moon and it's time to set our intentions and start something new. And with this wonderful energy of spring, timing could not be better. So if you like vision boards, now is the time to create it. I personally really like new moon candle magic. You can create a manifestation jar, of course, and pull from the energy of Ostara by using an eggshell instead of a glass jar. New moon water is amazing to work with too, another thing I do often. What should you not be doing right now? Well, new moons are not a time to give anything up or let something go. It is not a good time to dwell in negativity right now either. So the new moon is about what you want to have, not what you want to give up. All right, I'm going to go grab today's topic about our Fae and Fairies, and I will be right back. Okay, let's jump into today's topic, the Fae and Fairies. So this one has been calling to me, and I just could not wait any longer. There is so much research that I'll need to do on the Fae to get a better idea of working with them before I try anything. I can say, by reading what I did for this podcast, I am completely overwhelmed. But I am even more interested now than I ever have been. I do at least have the first round of info pulled so I can air this podcast. And I know this is probably going to be maybe a little long outside of my slated 30 minutes, but I know I kept adding a bunch of side notes. So this is at least a good start. I have today's episode broken down into 3 main areas. I've got the Fae and Fairies, in general, then working with the Fae and Fairies, and then third, fairies at our work. So what is a fairy? Fairies are also called Fae, or maybe good folk, but either way they come from another world or between realms. The word fairy can be found in the English language going back over 700 years ago. And while the actual definition might not have been well explained, it was pretty much agreed that they came from between the realms, that they live on Earth but are not always on the same plane or dimension as we are. Fairies have magical powers and come in many different forms, shapes, and sizes. The term, quote, good fae and, quote, bad fae really does not work in the way we have come to normalize the term good and bad. So in general, think of fairies who maybe are more helpful to humans and those who are not helpful to humans. Just about every culture has a history of fairies. Celtics, Germans, French, English, and Slavic. But where do they come from? Well, that part does vary by culture. So Christian religion says they are angels or demons who have been demoted. Pagans will say they are demoted deities and spirits of nature. And way back with early human life, It was said fairies came from spirits of the dead. Now, over the years, the term fairy has had different meanings too. In medieval times, fairy meant enchanted. In the Victorian era, fairies gained popularity, and with the Celtic revival, fairies were said to be part of Ireland's heritage. So what do fairies look like, and what types are there? There are so many variables here. Let's start with the three most popular ones, and those are going to be our gnomes, pixies, and elves. So gnomes started in Scotland as woodland fae, but are now pretty much a part of woodland or forest type areas in many locations. They are a part of the earth element and completely connected to nature, so that is where their energy goes when helping. Right? It's to our animals and to our plants. Now, gnomes are not known for a bunch of human contact and are said to pretty much still steer clear of us. Visually, gnomes are said to be small, dwarf-like beings that age really fast, giving them that old appearance when we associate things with them. So pixies. All right, try not to think of Peter Pan and Tinkerbell when you think of a pixie. It's hard, right? Especially with the one movie from, or at least for me, from 2003 when Peter Pan starts calling out, "I do believe in fairies. I do, to give an injured Tinkerbell strength and energy to come back alive. As he chants, "I do believe in fairies. I do. The energy is passed to the children captured by pirates on the boat, and they start chanting it too. Then the energy travels near and far, so that even people sleeping are chanting it in their dreams, and eventually the pirates on the ship are too." Okay, listen.
I do believe in fairies.
In what?
I do believe in fairies.
I do believe in fairies.
I do believe in fairies. I do. I do.
I do believe in fairies.
I do. I do. I do believe in fairies. I do. I do. I do believe in fairies.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
I do believe in fairies. I do believe in fairies. I do believe in fairies. I do.
I do believe in fairies. I do. I do.
I do believe in fairies. I do believe in fairies.
Oh, Tink, you're alive. Oh, Tink.
I actually get chills and goosebumps over my whole body when I hear that. It's a rush that comes over me. Another side note, when my older son was, about 1.5, he started watching the cartoon Disney movie Peter Pan before he went to bed every night. And night after night, we would have the same routine, bath time, jammies, and a bedtime snack of oatmeal with cinnamon and apples while the movie played. Even my younger son heard the sounds nightly. Though he was too little to watch, he heard. Every night, Peter Pan and Tinkerbell would battle Captain Hook, and they would absorb the movie's energy. Okay, setting movies aside, what are pixies? Well, like gnomes, they live in the forest and woods, but also in our gardens. So if you're looking to attract them, plant a bunch of flowers and keep your garden tidy. Pixies are said to be tiny, under 4 inches, and all of them have wings. They are fast, and of the Fae, are said to have the most contact with humans. Pixies are also said to be the mischievous group of the fairies. All right, third is elves. Elves have a Germanic start and are also found in Icelandic and Nordic stories. They are, of course, super popular in books and movies. My favorite childhood book was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which, of course, had elves in it. Elves are in Harry Potter, in that series, the Hobbit series, and Ella Enchanted. Elves are known for their pointed ears and look very human-like. Elves also live in the forest like pixies and gnomes and are said to be the defenders of them. Again, not a bunch of contact with humans, and are generally said to be friendly if it does happen. But elves are said to take revenge if a human makes them mad. So there is one more that's on the kind of top of the popular list, and that's a leprechaun. But I am saving leprechauns for the end since they can play a big part in our office and work. So I know in the middle of my podcast is not the time for a poem. I did actually write one, which I'll read at the end. But I'm going to quickly read a really cute one from Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. And it goes, Sandra's seen a leprechaun. Eddie touched a troll. Lori danced with witches once. Charlie found some goblin's gold. Donald heard a mermaid sing. Susie spied an elf. But all the magic I have known, I've had to make myself. All right, our gnomes, pixies, and elves are pretty well known. But there are other fae that might not be as popular, but certainly are just as important. These fairies are brownies, divas, banshee, dryads, kelpie, kobolds, changelings, merfolk, nymphs, salamanders, seelie court, and selkie. So brownies are a home fairy. And they are called brownies because of their brown clothing and earthy type look. Brownies started in Scottish stories, but quickly grew into English and German folklore too. So originally they helped farmers with outdoor chores while the farmers slept, but now they are drawn to any family really that needs help. And they usually stay with a family for a while. The longer they stay with you, the more good luck you'll have, of course. Brownies are drawn to our pets and are known for making friends with them. Now, dryads are fascinating. They are basically fairies that are tied to a specific tree. Now, the actual tree is not the fairy, though, but the fairy lives inside it almost as the tree. These type of fairies are very, very nice. And if you have a tree with a face shape on it somewhere, you might have a dryad fairy. Banshee are female fairies and only found in Ireland and Scotland. They basically predict the coming of death with a haunting cry as they comb their long gray hair. Let's see, there's divas. Divas are thought to be much like fireflies, like tiny, tiny little balls of round light that float and fly, who are mostly found in forests and nature. So they first appeared in Greece and Persia and are said to guide witches to plants that they can use as medicine. So next I've got Kelpie, mermaids, and Selkie. Well, Kelpie are super scary. And really mermaids can be too. So Kelpie are dark, scary fairies who are cannibalistic, basically, as in, eat other fairies and humans and animals. They come from Scottish and Irish stories that tell of an ugly sea creature that can also be found in rivers and streams. So merpeople or merfolk, also sometimes called sirens, I believe, are beautiful, but can have a dark side to them as well. As much as they are known for saving drowning people, they are also said to lure ships to the rocks to kill the sailors. Now, Selkie are also a part of the sea by Ireland and can shapeshift into a seal. Selkie are known to mate with men and are more visible during big, seasonal times like spring or Midsummer's Eve. Salamanders, if you are into fire magic like me, you already know about salamanders. They are an element of fire and can be very powerful. These fairies will show themselves with, the colors of the fire and actually in the flame itself, and will sometimes look like a lizard on fire. So salamanders come to help witches with their fire magic. Next, I've got nymphs. These Greek fairies are known to be very sexual, but don't ever really hurt humans. Rather, they've been said to actually fall in love with them. There are more that I don't have a bunch of details on. There's kobolds. Those are fairies that live in mines and protect the miners. If mad, they can undo, or they're said to undo the miners' hard work. Changelings, those are scary. If in fact real. They are basically a fairy child that was changed out or swapped out for a human child. There's seelie court fairies. Those are the judges of the fairy world. They are pretty much active at twilight and full of beautiful fairies. The unseelie court is just the opposite. kind of a scary version of fairies that are not pretty, that make up pretty much of like the dark fairies and lost spirits. As for the four elements, sylphs are fairies of the air element, Undines are fairies of the water element. I mentioned salamanders and gnomes already. Salamanders are the fairies of the fire element, and gnomes are the fairies of the earth element. So there is in fact a dark side to fairies. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows when working with them. Bummer, huh? We see that with the sulky for sure, but it's reasonable. Everything is balanced, right? Like a pendulum that swings back and forth with life. To the degree there is energy on one side is the degree there will be energy on the other side. You want a bland, predictable life? Stay in the middle and don't let your pendulum swing. So fairies are known to drown, murder, and curse humans. They are known for dangerous pranks on us as well, and they have been said to collect our souls. I mentioned changelings, who are known for snatching babies and taking humans as their own. The quote-unquote nice fairies are pretty much known to be the garden fairies, brownies, gnomes, dryads, and pixies. Not that they don't have their mischievous moments, but they are in that, quote-unquote good or nice category. All right, what about working with the Fae? I think there is a natural connection or draw between fairies and witches. Most witches work directly with and in nature, and work with many of the elements and energies of nature. The Fae are directly connected to nature too, and work with those who honor and protect it. So it makes sense that the Fae would want to work with us. So is a fairy near you or trying to work with you? Well, did you get the tingles or the shivers? Are you followed by crows or ravens? Do you randomly hear giggles or smell flowers? What about seeing something out of the corner of your eye or have things maybe go missing in your home? Do you always bring nature inside or maybe even save spiders in your home and take them out to be free? Well, those are all signs a fairy is either really close or trying to work with you. Other signs can be hearing bells, seeing mushroom circles, finding patches of clovers, even better if you find a four-leaf one, and the flickering of lights. Quick note, if you find a fairy ring, that ring of mushrooms, do not step inside it. Walk around. So there are some general tips to be mindful of when working with fairies. First is about our names. We should never give our actual name to a fairy. Instead, use a nickname. We are not supposed to accept food from a fairy or say thank you directly. We can appreciate their help without actually saying the words thank you. Now, gifts from a fairy can be tricky since fairies are or can be tricksters. They may not be as they seem. Let's see, fairies like birds to be fed, feeders full, and water plentiful in our yards. They like flowers in our gardens and yards that are tidy and pleasing. If you can, hang shiny objects from your yard trees or shrubs to celebrate them. Now, if you are like me and have a bunch of crow residents, that might be hard, as they love to take shiny things for themselves. Fairies do like it when you play music in your yard and walk around in it. Dancing is even better. The time for fairies to come back out is now, spring. To work with the Fae, you need to create a space for both of you that you'll equally feel welcome in. You'll need to, spend time there in that space so that they can get to know you just as much as you can get to know them. Build a relationship first, something that you can both work within later. Offerings are good. There may be specific ones for, the individual fairy you are wanting to work with, but in general, fairies like milk, honey, wine. They like bread, cakes, cookies, as well as beer, fruit, and candy. Fairies like shiny things and items that sparkle. Also, garden wind chimes are good. And of course, caring for the earth and our animals, domestic and wildlife, are perfect for honoring them. So what should you not do? Well, fairies don't like iron. So anywhere you have an iron structure, we'll send them running. Even little things like iron horseshoes on the gates or above front doors will scare them off. Don't sprinkle salt in your garden or have loud bells ringing. And it is said that fairies do not do well with church officials. So if you have one in your home, they will be scared off. All right, let's call up the leprechauns. It's time for fairies at our office. We just celebrated St. Patrick's Day last week, and it happens every March 17th. This famous Irish holiday is all about shamrocks, the color green, luck of the Irish, and leprechauns. With that said, I have yet another quick side note about St. Patrick's Day and pagans. So this is actually a mournful day for many Irish pagans who believe St. Patrick was called to Ireland to, quote-unquote, remove all snakes. Now, the term snakes was not about actual snakes. It was about pagan Celts and Druids who had a snake tattoo on their arm. So the Irish will view St. Patrick's Day as the day many of their ancestors were killed or driven out of Ireland. To this day, some will wear a snake emblem to remember how St. Patrick actually failed and that paganism is still completely alive today. Now, this story has been counterbalanced with other stories saying St. Patrick just facilitated the spread of Christianity, which in turn promoted much of the country turning to the new religion. All right, back to leprechauns. So Celtic started the leprechaun stories back in the 8th century, saying little fairies, leprechauns, about 2 to 3 feet tall, lived by the water. They are now known for being the cobblers of the fairy world and the maker of shoes, which is how they receive their gold. It's said they are cobblers because they dance so much to the Irish music that they wear their shoes out. Leprechauns are also known as bankers. And while they did not always wear green, it actually used to be all red, it certainly is their staple color today. So how do you know a leprechaun is near? You'll hear tiny tapping noises, which is them using hammers to make the shoes. And if you hear Irish music playing, they are known for dancing to the music while keeping out of sight from humans. In our modern world, it is said that if you catch a leprechaun, you'll get 3 wishes and have good luck. Now, this goes hand in hand with the saying, luck of the Irish, but catching one is nearly impossible. So leprechauns are a part of the fairy world, which is mainly female, but leprechauns are always all male. There are no girl leprechauns. They are known as tricksters, which makes it even harder to work with them, and they can be very, very sneaky. So a couple things we can do at the office with leprechauns is a lucky spell jar and a green candle spell. Of course, we can use, what items we have good outcomes with, but things that will help draw this energy will be green water. I would just use, food coloring to make that happen. Coins and a 4-leaf clover, if you can find one. Good luck crystals are smoky quartz, citrine, tiger's eye, rose quartz, amethyst, garnet, sodalite, jade, and green adventurine. Our good luck and money herbs are going to be basil, dill, cinnamon, ginger, spearmint, allspice, and chamomile. Sage, jade, chives, lavender, rosemary, oregano, bay leaves, lemon balm, and thyme. For candles, go green for money and good luck, and go orange for luck with your career. Now, if you don't want to actually invite a leprechaun into your workspace, which I totally understand, you can still do a March lucky spell for money, wealth, and career by using any of these items too. Well, I did write a poem about the Fae and Fairies. I'm going to go grab it, and I will be right back. Well, I went to get my poem, and instead, I have my cat. So I'm going to try to do this one-handed and record while I read and hold him. Do I dare, do I start to work with those who call my heart? The chills I feel when whispers tell of those who I do not know well. I'll call them more than once or twice and ask for help and their advice. My garden flowers will bloom and shine, and I'll leave offerings on which to dine. Fairies near and fairies far, fairies wherever you are, I call to you and ask to see the truth on which my spells will be. I do believe, in you I trust, so close my eyes and call I must. To work with you and feel you near will help my witchy ways be clear. I wish upon this shooting star to fairies one at all that are. I call you now to lift the veil and forever be my fairy tale. That is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode on the Fae and Fairies. Have an amazing Ostara and weekend, and I'll talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.